How's it going, everyone? It's Harvey from Weather Sponge 5000, and in this video, we're going to talk about Tropical Storm Nicole, which likely will become a hurricane within the next few hours and determine the impacts you will experience all throughout the East Coast, where the entirety of the East Coast could experience tropical storm force conditions associated with Tropical Storm Nicole and hurricane conditions, more specifically right around Florida, where hurricane warnings are issued. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. So to begin, let's take a look at the overall composition of Tropical Storm Nicole at this time by taking a look at the water vapor imagery, and we do see that this storm is a lot more compact than it was yesterday and 2 days ago, where now we're beginning to see rotation, more closed rotation and a more compact rotation around the center circulation, which is part of the reason why it is now considered Tropical Storm Nicole rather than Subtropical Storm Nicole, because now it's really starting to gain more tropical characteristics, with its eye wall becoming a little bit more compact, a little bit more convection, and we're seeing the overall center of circulation become less elongated as a result of this storm becoming more tropical, absorbing more of that latent heat that's over the throughout the Atlantic at this time, where we're still seeing temperatures well above 80 degrees when it comes to sea surface temperatures. So we're still seeing a lot of convection. The convection, however, is still displaced somewhat from the center circulation. The strongest winds are just outside of the eye wall, which shows that this necessarily isn't at its perfect stage where it could intensify rapidly. However, over the next couple of hours, under this very low sheared environment, and we're going to see the convection wrap around all sides of the center circulation, and we'll begin to see the storm gradually intensify a little bit faster than it has over the past several hours. It's currently a 65-mile-per-hour storm, but the millibar pressure has dropped a lot more significantly than initially anticipated, which shows that we could see an even stronger storm make landfall somewhere along the Florida coast. And of course, this would mean a stronger storm throughout the entire East Coast, which is definitely a concern. We're seeing this strengthen a little bit more rapidly than anticipated, and we're seeing the eye wall become a little bit more compact than initially anticipated, which will increase the winds around the center of circulation. And the millibar pressure is down to the low 980s at this time, and it'll only go down as it continues to move eastward under this low shear environment. Now, taking a look at what the computer models are stating at this time, of course, it's pretty much inevitable at this point. We're going to see a landfall somewhere around Florida at this time. So taking a look at the computer models, we do see that the GFS model forecasted this storm to be at 992 millibars at this point. However, the storm is at 984 millibars, so it's strengthening a little bit more a little bit more rapidly than anticipated, which is a concern, where we could potentially see a stronger storm make landfall than initially anticipated. We do see the GFS model wants to take a landfall somewhere between the mid 980s, but I'm gonna take a guess that we're gonna see a storm that's even a little bit stronger than that, based on the fact that we're already down to 984 millibars. So we should see an even stronger storm to where we could potentially see a storm in the 970s or maybe even the 960s make landfall somewhere along the coast of Florida, which would be equivalent to a Category 2 hurricane, which would definitely raise a concern when it comes to impacts. However, I want to put a disclaimer: whether this is a Category 1 or a Category 2, you still should prepare for significant impacts along the Florida coast, especially since this storm has such a large wind field. Taking a look at the wind speed map from the GFS model, we do see that the winds extend over a large area, pretty much extending from Cape Hatteras all the way down to the latitude of West Palm Beach, where we're seeing tropical storm force winds. This is, of course, part of the reason. It's the fact that it's subtropical is definitely part of the reason why the wind field is so large, because we have this big ridge that's right around Canada that's bringing that Arctic air further southward, and that Arctic air is interacting with this very warm core tropical system. And of course, that enhances the instability on the north side for the wind field to be a lot larger because it's getting contributions from baroclinic influences induced by this surface level ridge that's located right around eastern Canada at this time. So the wind field is a lot larger as a result. However, the strongest of the winds still should be around the center of circulation because this will eventually become more and more tropical as this continues to move eastward and we begin to see convection wrap around on all sides of the center of circulation. So we still should see the strongest winds embedded near the eye wall, but overall the wind field will be very large with this storm, which is a major concern, not only because you're going to experience a prolonged period of strong winds in Florida and other areas along the East Coast, but the fact that the wind field is so large will enhance the storm surge because the wind field is so large that the wind has more time to push that water along the Florida coast, and we have a long stretch where wind could just pile up the water, and it's expecting to pile all that water up along the Florida, Georgia, and Carolina coast, where right now Florida is already experiencing close to tropical storm force winds along the coast, where I think the latest report in Daytona Beach, you guys already are experiencing a sustained wind close to 30 miles per hour. So and these strong winds are over a large area of the Atlantic, so the storm surge should be a major concern along the coast, despite the fact that this necessarily won't be the strongest hurricane in the world. The wind field is so large that the storm surge will be larger than what you'd expect for a typical Category 1 hurricane, which is definitely a major concern. And that's not even including the fact that this storm may be stronger than what the GFS model anticipates and what the European model anticipates, where the European model is also expecting a landfall somewhere around the mid to upper 980s, making landfall somewhere around West Palm Beach or Port St. Lucie, Florida. But the fact that we're seeing the storm strengthen a little bit faster than anticipated does concern me, because we could potentially see a Category 2 in our hands along the coast of Florida. And it will be only the fourth time in recorded history the United States will receive a landfalling hurricane in the month of November, as an occurrence like this is very rare for the United States this late into the season. The last time the United States received a landfalling hurricane in November was back in 1985, which was in Florida as well. So this will be one of those rare scenarios where we're going to see a hurricane make landfall along the coast of Florida, and it won't be done once it makes landfall in Florida, because of course this will move up the East Coast, and it has a high chance of bringing close to, if not over, tropical storm force wind gusts to many places along the mid-Atlantic and northeast up ahead. And thanks to the instability that's going to be enhanced by this trough that's moving through, that's going to bring heavy snow throughout the Midwest, we should see this storm strengthen despite the fact it's going to move over land and of course lose its tropical characteristics. Let's take a look at the relative humidity, and you see the inhibiting factor with this storm is the dry air, but eventually the computer models are expecting that the moisture will wrap around on all sides of this storm, because wind shear should lessen even more. If we were to take a look at the upper level winds right now, we do see that the European model, while there is still some wind shear, we do see the wind shear subside even more, which will allow the moisture to wrap around on all sides of this storm, and that will allow for this storm to strengthen even more as it continues to move further westward, which is definitely a major concern. So definitely stay prepared along the coast of Florida, and of course up along the East Coast, along the coast of Florida, you should expect very strong winds, and this will move up the East Coast as well, where you could experience a lot of rain as well. So make sure to pay close attention to that. And taking a look at what the ensemble members are stating, we do see that there's a pretty large agreement at this time where it'll exactly make landfall anywhere that's just south of Daytona Beach to somewhere as far south as maybe Fort Lauderdale. That's pretty much where the computer models are leaning towards when it comes to where this will make landfall. Most likely very close in proximity to West Palm Beach. There's pretty high certainty regarding that. And This storm is expected to move up the east coast, and there's going to be a big trough that's going to come through, and that's going to steer this north very fast and very quickly to the northeast, which should enhance its strength, which is why we don't see this storm really losing a lot of strength, despite the fact that it's going to move over land, because it's going to get some help from baroclinic instability associated with this trough moving through. So we should still see the storm maintain its strength and move over land, and this ridge will be just to the west enough to push this towards Florida and eventually move this all throughout the east coast. Now, taking a look at the forecasted wind over the next several hours, because of course that's going to be another big factor associated with this storm. Taking a look at that, let's first take a look at the wind field. Look at how large that wind field is. That's gonna of course cause a heavy amount of storm surge, thanks to how much time the wind has to pile up all that water, and the wind field will only increase as the storm strengthens, and of course as the pressure gradient increases between this ridge and the tropical storm Nicole. So that's going to be something to keep in mind as well. Hurricane warnings are issued throughout some islands of the Bahamas and of course the coast of Florida. Likely, as it's, I'd say more likely than not, this will make landfall as a hurricane somewhere along the coast of Florida. So you need to take the right precautions along the coast. Now, taking a look at the wind forecast over the next several days. Taking a look at the wind right now, look at how large that wind field is, guys. Already the coast of Florida is experiencing strong winds associated with this pressure gradient between tropical storm Nicole and this ridge just to the north of it, and it extends very far out, pretty much as far north as Maine, which is just a lot of wind and just a lot of water that this storm is going to pile up along the Florida coast. Now let's move forward to November 9th. We do see that at this point the storm is right at Florida's doorstep, and it's just to the east of Fort Lauderdale at this time, and some portions of Florida are already experiencing sustained winds that are close to, if not over 50 miles per hour. We're seeing a sustained wind right around West Palm Beach. That's around 40 miles per hour, and of course the gusts will be much higher. Taking a look at the winds near the eye, we're seeing a sustained wind speed of 48, gusts probably close to, if not over, hurricane force. So definitely keep this in mind. And then going into 10 p.m., this is when the storm should make landfall and moving even forward. Look at the strong winds that are moving into Port St. Lucie. Taking a look at the sustained winds reported there that are expected to be reported at landfall, 51 miles per hour, and I expect them to be a little bit higher than this, because I'm expecting this storm to be at least a little bit stronger than what the current forecast models are saying, based on the fact that as of very recently, the storm's been rapidly intensifying more rapidly than anticipated. So I expect sustained winds should be around 60 to 70 miles per hour close to Port St. Lucie, with wind gusts, of course, well over 80 and close to 100 in some localized areas. So keep that in mind. And of course, the storm surge will be an issue, flooding rains, and then continuing to move forward. This wind will also move into the middle of Florida, and we see that wind again into the west coast of Florida, which is definitely the last thing you need, especially since you guys along the west coast of Florida experience a brunt of Hurricane Ian. So definitely prepare for that possibility of very strong winds. And then moving forward to the 11th, we're going to see those strong winds move up northward, where we're seeing those stronger winds move ashore along the Carolinas. Moving forward with the time period, we do see the winds will eventually move up into the northeast, where New York City and New Jersey, the Interstate 95 corridor, could experience very strong winds associated with this, and potentially coastal flooding in some areas. So make sure to keep that in mind as well, as there's a possibility I might be reporting right around Long Island when Tropical Storm Nicole moves up the east coast. But I'll keep you guys updated regarding that. But taking a look at the forecasted storm surge, I am expecting a storm surge right around 3 to 5 feet along the Florida coast. Of course, since the wind field's so large and the fact that the east coast of Florida is fairly vulnerable to storm surge, I do expect the storm surge to be quite high. And if you don't know what storm surge is, pretty much go along the coast where the ground is normally dry. Add 3 to 5 feet of water on top of that, and that's pretty much the definition of storm surge flooding. So if you live right along the coast in normally dry ground, you should expect to be fighting off 3 to 5 feet of water. So if you live in along the immediate coast that's very prone to flooding, make sure to take the right precautions and evacuate, because remember, all it takes is 2 feet of water to move a car. So you definitely don't want to underestimate the water and the power of 3 to 5 feet of storm surge. So make sure to take the right precautions, and we even see that storm surge flooding is expected as far north as the Carolinas, and even the west coast of Florida could get involved. So make sure to pay close attention to that and heed the warnings of your local officials. Now, taking a look at the rainfall forecast, this will be another big issue that will extend pretty much all throughout the East Coast, where Florida could experience up to 8 inches of rain in some areas, and we will see this flooding, rain extend up to the Northeast, where many areas in the Northeast should experience 3 to 5 inches of rain, especially if right around just to the east of the Appalachian Mountain ranges and Pennsylvania and New York City. This is where the rain should be the heaviest. So keep that in mind throughout the Northeast, that you should expect 3 to 5 inches of rain and potentially 5 to 8 inches of rain along the immediate east coast of Florida. Now, take a look at my forecast when it comes to potential Hurricane Nicole. So I'm expecting this to strengthen a little bit more than what the forecast models are saying, based on the fact that this storm is strengthening faster than anticipated. I'm expecting this to make landfall as a 90-mile-per-hour Category 1 hurricane, and this isn't like your typical Category 1 hurricane. This has a very large wind field, so make sure to be aware of that, a possibility along the coast of Florida, and then it'll eventually weaken as it moves over land, but the wind field will only get larger as a result of baroclinic instability that's going to be induced by this trough moving through. And the winds will still be strong as it moves up the Northeast and through the mid-Atlantic, where you could easily experience wind gusts over 60 miles per hour, especially along the coast in the Northeast. So make sure to be aware of that possibility of heavy rain and strong winds throughout the Northeast head into this weekend. But yeah, guys, I hope you guys stay safe along the Florida coast. Hurricane warnings are issued, and make sure to heed the warnings of your local officials, because this could be a very dangerous event, especially if you live along the coast, where storm surge flooding will be a concern not only for Florida but potentially for the entire East Coast. So keep that in mind throughout the East Coast. But anyways, guys, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather content, and I hope you guys have a great day.